Married for 47 years. That's how long my wife and I were together before I finally understood where we went wrong. People hear that number and assume success. They assume endurance means wisdom, that time automatically equals understanding. It doesn't. Sometimes time just means you stayed, and staying by itself doesn't guarantee closeness. For a long time, I believed we were doing fine. We didn't fight much. We paid our bills. We raised our children. We showed up to family events together. From the outside, our marriage looked solid, and for years, that was enough for me. When you're younger, you think the absence of conflict means the presence of love. You think if things aren't falling apart, they must be holding together. That's not always true. Some marriages don't break loudly. They don't explode or collapse or end in dramatic moments. They slowly fade, quietly, politely. So quietly that you don't even realize what's happening until one day you wake up next to someone you love, but don't really know anymore. When my wife and I first got married, everything felt intentional. We talked about everything: dreams, fears, plans. We paid attention to each other because everything was new, and new things demand attention. But familiarity is different. Familiarity makes you assume. You assume you know what the other person thinks. You assume you know what they need. You assume they'll tell you if something is wrong. That assumption cost us more than any argument ever could have. We didn't stop loving each other. That's the part people misunderstand. Love didn't disappear. Attention did. And attention is what keeps love alive. Somewhere along the way, our conversations changed. Not all at once. Gradually. They became shorter, more practical, more efficient. We talked about schedules instead of feelings, about responsibilities instead of dreams, about what needed to be done, not how we were doing. At the time, it felt normal. It felt like adulthood. It felt like what long marriages naturally turn into. No one warns you that normal can still be dangerous. We were good partners. We worked well together. We managed a household. But partnership slowly replaced intimacy. And I didn't notice, because nothing felt wrong enough to demand attention. That's how fading works. It doesn't hurt at first. It just feels quiet. I remember a moment that stays with me now. We were sitting at the dinner table, just the two of us. No arguments, no tension, just silence. And I realized we had both finished eating without saying anything meaningful. Not because we were angry, because we had nothing left in the habit of sharing. We had stopped inviting each other into our inner worlds. That's when I understood something uncomfortable. We were living side by side, not together. I thought love was supposed to be effortless once you'd been together long enough. I thought if you chose the right person, things would eventually settle into something stable. What no one tells you is that stability without curiosity becomes distance. You stop asking questions because you think you already know the answers. And when you stop asking, you stop learning. And when you stop learning someone, you stop seeing them. I didn't notice how often my wife tried to tell me things indirectly. Small comments, changes in tone, moments of hesitation. I brushed them off because I wasn't listening closely. I thought if something mattered, she'd say it clearly. What I didn't understand is that people stop speaking clearly when they feel unheard. They don't raise their voice. They lower their expectations. And that's far more dangerous. I was busy. That was always my reason. Busy providing, busy working, busy being responsible. And responsibility can be a very convincing excuse. It makes you feel justified. It makes you feel necessary. But being busy doesn't excuse being absent. I didn't cheat. I didn't abandon my family. I didn't intentionally hurt her. And for a long time, I told myself that meant I was a good husband. Now I know better. A good marriage isn't defined by what you don't do wrong. It's defined by what you actively choose to do right. And I stopped choosing. Not deliberately, gradually. I assumed love would carry us through seasons of neglect. Love doesn't work that way. Love needs attention the way a fire needs oxygen. You don't notice the fire going out immediately. You just feel less warmth. That's what happened to us. There was less laughter, less curiosity, less patience. We weren't fighting, but we weren't connecting either. And connection doesn't survive on silence. One night, my wife asked me a question I still hear clearly. She said, "Do you still see me?" Not, "Do you love me?" Not, "Are you happy?" Just, "Do you still see me?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't care, because I didn't know. That's a terrifying moment in a marriage. Realizing you can't answer a simple question honestly. I wanted to say yes, but I had to admit to myself that I had been seeing my routine more than my wife, my obligations more than my relationship, my role more than the person I married. That realization didn't come with shouting or tears. It came with sadness. And sadness lingers longer than anger. We tried to fix things later. Later always feels safer. But later is harder. By the time you notice distance, it has already become familiar. And familiarity is difficult to undo. You have to relearn how to be intentional. You have to rebuild habits you didn't even realize you lost. We made progress, but I often wonder how different things might have been if I had noticed earlier. If I had paid attention when the signs were quiet. If I had taken silence as seriously as conflict. Here's what I wish I had understood sooner. Marriage doesn't break because of one big mistake. It erodes because of small, repeated absences. Not being fully present. Not listening without distraction. Not asking questions when it's easier to assume. Not choosing your partner when life pulls you elsewhere. You don't fall out of love. You fall out of attention. And attention is a decision you have to make every day, even on ordinary days, especially on ordinary days. If you're married and listening to this, I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because awareness is powerful. Pay attention to the small things, the tone of conversations, the silence at the table, the moments when it would be easier to look at your phone than at your partner. Those moments matter more than grand gestures. You don't fix marriages with dramatic changes. You fix them with consistent presence, with curiosity, with choosing to see the person in front of you again, not as a role, not as a responsibility, but as a human being who wants to feel known. If I could go back, I wouldn't change who I married. I would change how closely I paid attention. I would ask more questions. I would listen without trying to solve. I would treat ordinary moments as sacred instead of skippable. Because love lives in the ordinary, and neglect does too. Married for 47 years taught me this. Love isn't what carries a marriage through time. Attention is. And attention, once lost, is much harder to regain than we like to admit. If this made you pause, share it with someone you care about. Leave a comment and tell me one small way you'll pay closer attention. And subscribe to The Last Lesson.